$500 is a lot to spend for a pair of wireless headphones, and so of course you want to make the right decision. Now, as you're looking for those headphones, you're probably trying to decide between something like the Sony WH-1000XM6 and the Sennheiser HDB630. But before you decide to drop nearly 500 freedom dollars for one of these headphones, you're probably going to want to know which one actually suits your needs. I mean, they're both really good headphones, but there are definitely trade-offs, compromises that each of these make that may sway you one way or the other. And that's what we're gonna find out in this video. We're gonna be putting the XM6 headphones against the HDB630 to see which is right for you. Starting with design, which of these headphones has the better design? Honestly, gonna give this round to Sennheiser here. After using both of these headphones, we just find that the Sennheiser HDB630 has bigger ear cups, which should suit people who especially have larger ears. The padding is a lot more plush with this leatherette material. Yes, it's made of plastic, same as the Sony XM6 headphones, but the advantage is that it doesn't have a hinge. Now, yes, a bit inconvenient because these headphones cannot fold. They can only swivel forward or back, but not having the hinge is kind of good because that just means there's one less failure point for the design of these headphones. Whereas the XM6, yes, they do fold, but there are already reports of some people having hinge issues with this headphone, and it's kind of, unfortunately, a running theme here, especially since the XM5 had those same hinge issues. So even just from a durability standpoint, we definitely have more confidence in the Sennheiser than the Sony. As for the Sony headphones, there are a few things that we wish were improved. For starters, the ear cups aren't as deep or as big as we want, so people with larger ears or even just like medium-sized ears, you might find that your ears might touch the inside of the ear cup more so than with the Sennheiser. The ear padding is also not very plush. You can see here just how much I can indent the padding, and so when you put it on your ears, to some people it kind of feels as if you can already feel the plastic enclosure despite having this cushion in between your head and the ear cup. Now, another way of looking at it is that this thinner padding can help create a tighter seal with your head, but unfortunately that does come at the cost of comfort for some. Also, what's really annoying with this generation of the Sony XM headphone series is that the ANC module actually kind of sticks out from the speaker driver, which again, if you have larger ears, you're probably going to feel that ANC module brush up against the outer part of your ear, which can be annoying. So while the Sony headphones, yeah, they do have some redeeming qualities like the ability to fold, just from a durability and comfort standpoint, the round has to go to Sennheiser here. Alright, connection options. Which of these headphones takes the crown here? Well, the answer is Sennheiser, and by a long shot. Now, one of the big things about the Sennheiser HDB630 is the fact that it comes with a USB-C dongle that allows you to connect any USB-C equipped device wirelessly to the headphones. So for example, if you have an iPhone and you want higher quality audio wirelessly without just resorting to the AAC Bluetooth codec, you can just pop in the USB-C dongle into your iPhone, then you'll be able to enjoy high quality audio wirelessly that way. Now, if you don't want to use the dongle, these headphones still support Bluetooth 5.2. It's not the newest codec on the block, far from it, but it should still work for most users, although you just won't get support for Auracast or LE Audio in the future based on just the internal Bluetooth. You do, however, get support for codecs like SBC, AAC, aptX Adaptive, and aptX HD. But if you want to connect wired, you can listen via USB-C audio or through a 2.5mm to 3.5mm cable. On the other hand, the Sony does have a good amount of connection options that should suit most people. For example, it does have Bluetooth 5.3, which opens the door for Auracast and LE Audio support down the line. The headphones also support Sony's LDAC codec, which enables high-quality audio over Bluetooth, and is a codec that is more widely supported on Android devices compared to something like aptX, which requires specific chipsets. So the fact that many Android devices do support LDAC means that you should have an easier time getting high-quality audio over Bluetooth, so long as you're not using an iPhone. However, that's really where the glitz and glamour stops, because you don't get a USB dongle with this. LDAC is the only high-quality audio codec that is supported here. You only get a 3.5mm jack for wired listening. It still doesn't have USB-C audio, despite being a headphone that came out in 2025, and despite basically most headphone manufacturers supporting the feature now. Sony, get on it. But again, most people, I think, are going to be satisfied with the amount of connection options, but when we're coming out with which gives the most considering the price of both of these headphones, yeah, Sennheiser really just does have more connection options compared to the XM6. Moving on, app features. Now, the Sony WH-1000XM6 can be customized using the Sony Sound Connect app, and the app really does have a lot of features, including an equalizer, sound virtualization, Sony 360 reality audio. You also get things like ambient sound control, so you can adjust the amount of ambient sound that you're listening to, and you can also create scenes, which essentially change things like the ANC mode that you're on, depending on what activity you're doing, like whether you're at the gym, whether you're walking, whether you're commuting, which is kind of cool if you're okay with the app having some location permissions on. Overall, the app features that are with the XM6 headphones are really geared towards casual listeners, or people who just want to add some extra convenience to their life or make some minor adjustments. Now, if you really want to go in and customize the sound though, then you're gonna want to take a look at the Sennheiser Smart Control app, which is used to control the HDB630, because in the app you will find a 5-band parametric EQ where you can actually choose the specific frequency that you want to adjust. You can adjust the EQ band, and then you can adjust the amount of gain up or down that you want to adjust those frequencies by. We've only ever seen this level of control from companies like Nothing and Shure with their companion apps, so it's really cool to see Sennheiser finally bringing it to theirs, especially since Sennheiser is already so loved by audiophiles. It's nice of them to bring these kind of audiophile traits into their companion app. And besides the parametric EQ, the Sennheiser Smart Control app also has its own version of geofencing, which allows you to do things like toggle ANC or different EQ presets based on whether you enter and exit a certain location. I believe Sennheiser calls this sound zones. The only annoying thing about this is the fact that in order to use sound zones, you will have to create a Sennheiser account, which I'm not a big fan of, but hey, if you really want those features, they are available. So when it comes to app features, it really, again, depends on what you prioritize. If you're somebody who kind of just wants features geared towards convenience, then the Sony Sound Connect app with the Sony XM6 headphones might be the power combo for you. But if you're somebody who really wants to dive deep into the tuning of their headphones, get it to sound just right, then this is a no-brainer. It's going to be the Sennheiser HDB630 with the Sennheiser Smart Control app. Next up, battery life. Which of these headphones is going to last you the longest, and which one will you have to charge the least? Well, the answer here is, again, Sennheiser. And it's by a long shot, actually. In our standard battery test, the Sennheiser HDB630 was able to last up to 53 hours and 46 minutes on a single charge with ANC on, which is very impressive. To be fair though, Sony followed up pretty nicely. It still has a really good result. In our battery test, the Sony WH-1000XM6 lasted 37 hours and 14 minutes, which again is still pretty good, should still be enough for a week's worth of commutes, maybe not as many full days in the office, and you might need to charge it a little bit more often than the Sennheiser. Either way, both of these headphones offer really good battery life, but if you're wondering which one of these has the best, it is Sennheiser for sure. Now this is where the story starts to take a little bit of a turn, now going into the microphone quality. Both of these headphones offer good sounding mics. They should sound fine for a Teams meeting, a Zoom call, or a phone call. Don't expect to record a podcast with these, but it will suffice for calling. However, if we are getting into the nitty-gritty, the Sony WH-1000XM6 we found does a better job in rejecting outside noise and maintaining vocal clarity, especially if you're trying to take a call out in the street or in a reverberant space like a dance studio or something. If you want to hear how the microphones on both of these headphones sound for yourself, then I highly recommend checking out our mic samples on SoundGuys.com. Okay, now we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of this video, starting with active noise cancellation. Which one of these headphones cancels out more noise? The answer is Sony, by a really good margin actually. In our lab test, the Sony WH-1000XM6 we found was able to reduce the loudness of outside noise by an average of 87%. And that is really impressive. It's among the best we've tested in a pair of over-ears so far. And it just shows that the Sony WH-1000XM6 is going to be more than capable of quieting loud environments, such as when you're trying to take a flight and you know those airplane engine rumbles can get really annoying. It's going to be able to quiet screechy subway cars, loud cafes if you're trying to work in there, and other modes of transportation. Suffice it to say, these will quiet out most environments with ease and let you just focus on your task and focus on the music without having to jack up the volume too much. On the other hand, Sennheiser may not be as good as the Sony XM6 in terms of ANC, but it should be fine for most users for daily use. In our lab test, the Sennheiser HDB630 was able to reduce the loudness of noise by an average of 83%. It's not going to quiet things like a screechy subway car or airplane as well as something like the Sony XM6, but again, it should be fine for most use cases if you're like in a moderately loud cafe or if you're at the office. Like, these will do a good job in helping you just lock in and do your work. The ANC performance of these headphones, you know, isn't class leading by any means, and it's a little underwhelming, especially given its price tag, but it should be fine. It should be fine for most people. But yeah, if ANC really is a priority for you, then you're probably gonna really want to consider the Sony WH-1000XM6. Now for probably the most important bit here, sound quality. Now we tested both of these headphones in our labs and we found that both headphones offer a tuning that will be agreeable to most listeners out of the box, though we'll say that Sennheiser's tuning will probably be less distasteful to more people. As you can see in the charts here, the Sony does tend to have a bit more bass emphasis compared to the Sennheiser and compared to our preference curve. Now this overemphasis is not necessarily extreme to the point of causing like kick drums or bass synths to mask other instruments, but you will notice that sounds like kick drums and bass synths might sound a little louder than you might be used to. On the XM6 headphones, you also notice that these headphones have a peak at around 10 kilohertz, which can cause some cymbals and hi-hats to sound shrill to some people. It doesn't make these headphones sound bad by any means, but just expect sounds like cymbals and hi-hats to sound a little louder than you might be used to. Now, you might be thinking that you can fix this by going into the Sony Sound Connect app and just using the equalizer, but unfortunately, Sony doesn't actually let you control this specific frequency band, so you're a little out of luck there. You can kind of adjust other frequencies to maybe compensate, but to really fix that spike at 10 kilohertz, Sony just has to either update the EQ or, you know, update the firmware with different tuning. So unfortunately, you're kind of stuck with that. But again, I don't think it's gonna ruin the listening experience of most users. It's just something that we noticed and something to be aware of. Now, hopping over the fence here to Sennheiser, we can see that the HDB630 follows our preference curve pretty well in the lows and low mids, though there is some underemphasis around 1.5 to 3 kilohertz and also past 6 kilohertz. Now, these points of underemphasis can cause instruments like violins and guitars to sound a little less detailed than you may be used to or than you may prefer. However, unlike with Sony, the Sennheiser HDB630 actually lets you tune the headphones to your tastes by using the parametric EQ in the Sennheiser Smart Control app. You can actually go in and specifically choose the frequencies, like the area between 1.5 to 3 kilohertz, and then just boost them. Again, really good job for Sennheiser for allowing users to have this level of control over the tuning. Although honestly, I wouldn't overthink this part too much. Both of these headphones should sound good to most people, which regardless of which you have, you are likely to enjoy how it sounds, and both manufacturers give you enough controls to kind of make tweaks here and there to get the sound exactly the way you want it. However, if you want the most precise control over your sound, then of course the Sennheiser is gonna be the way to go. So with all of that in mind, which do you buy? The Sennheiser HDB630, which goes for about $500, or the Sony WH-1000XM6, which goes for around $450. Overall, if you want the more plug-and-play experience, and you also prioritize ANC performance above all, then the Sony WH-1000XM6 headphones is probably going to be the way to go. But if you're an audiophile or somebody who just really likes to tinker with the sound of their headphones, and you want to get the headphones to sound exactly the way you want to, or you also just want more connection options, as many as possible in your wireless headphones, then the Sennheiser HDB630 is going to be the way to go. If you're asking me, personally between these two, I'd probably go for the Sennheiser. Yeah, it kind of sucks that the ANC isn't among the best out there, but I can take a little bit of a hit on the ANC if it means that I can basically connect this to whatever device I want to. And plus, I am somebody who doesn't mind taking the time to actually go into a parametric EQ and tune the headphones to my taste. So this suits me the best, but it may not suit you. In that case, the XM6 might be the better option for you. So remember, plug and play and just general ease of use out of the box, it's going to be the Sony WH-1000XM6. If you want full control, it's going to be the Sennheiser HDB630. Now, there's a lot more to the Sennheiser HDB630 story than I covered in this video, since I was just comparing it to the XM6. So if you want to learn about Sennheiser's latest release, then I highly recommend checking out Chris's full review, which you can find right here.